Listen to me. Today is the day you stop lying to yourself. Today is the day you stop saying, I can't. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. Or I don't have time. Because the truth is, excuses don't make your life easier, they make it smaller. Every excuse you make is a wall you build between you and your dream. You say you want success, but success doesn't come to people who negotiate with effort. Success comes to the ones who show up when they don't feel like it. When your alarm rings at 5 a.m. Your dream is asking, how bad do you want me? And if you hit snooze, that dream rolls over and goes back to sleep too. Stop blaming your past. Stop blaming your parents. Stop blaming your boss. Stop blaming your circumstances. Because there are people right now with fewer resources, less support, more pain, more pressure, and they're still winning. Why? Because they decided excuses are not an option. Excuses sound nice, they feel comfortable, they protect your ego, but they also steal your future. Every time you say, I'll do it later, you're really saying my goals aren't important. And if your goals aren't important to you, they won't be important to anybody else. Greatness requires ownership. Ownership means you stand up and say, if it's going to happen, it's on me. Not luck, not chance, not somebody else. You take responsibility for your time, your effort, your habits, your mindset. Because once you own your life, you control your life. You don't need perfect conditions, you need commitment. The rain doesn't stop champions. The noise doesn't stop champions. The fear doesn't stop champions. Champions don't wait for motivation. They become disciplined. And discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. You want to know why some people win and others don't? Winners decide once. Losers decide every day. Winners say, this is what I'm doing. And if they lock in, no debate, no excuses, just execution. So I'm challenging you right now, write down every excuse you've been using. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have money. I don't have support. Then look at that list and understand something. None of those excuses will change your life. Action will. You don't need another motivational video. You need movement. You don't need another plan. You need discipline. You don't need another excuse. You need results. So starting today, when your mind says, I can't, you say, watch me. When your body says, I'm tired, you say, one more rep. When life says to give up, you say, not today. Because the moment you stop making excuses is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. Excuses are comfort zones disguised as reasons. And most people don't even realize they're living inside them. They wake up every morning wrapped in explanations that sound feel justified, and seem logic. But those explanations quietly build a cage around their potential, An excuse doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't fight you, it agrees with you. It tells you that you're right to wait, right to hesitate, right to postpone your effort until conditions are perfect. And because it sounds reasonable, you accept it. That's how comfort zones trap you. Not with force, but with permission. Think about it. Every time you say you'll start tomorrow, what you're really saying is that comfort matters more than growth. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth demands effort, discipline, and sacrifice. Comfort asks for none of those things. Comfort says stay where you are. Do what you've always done and expect nothing more than what you already have. That's why excuses feel safe. They protect you from risk, from failure, from embarrassment, but they also protect you from progress. They keep your life predictable, average, and stuck. People often believe their excuses are facts. They say they don't have enough time, enough money, enough talent, enough support. But look closely, and you'll see that those statements are rarely absolute truths. They're interpretations. Someone else with the same schedule finds time. Someone else with fewer resources builds success. Someone else with less talent trains until skill replaces limitation. The difference isn't circumstance. The difference is mindset. One person sees a barrier and stops. Another sees the same barrier and climbs. Excuses are clever because they dress themselves as logic. They say it's practical to wait, responsible to delay, realistic to lower your expectation. They convince you that staying comfortable is the smart choice. But comfort has never built greatness. Comfort has never produced innovation, transformation, or excellence. Every breakthrough in history came from someone who stepped outside what felt safe and chose what felt necessary. Comfort keeps you still. Necessity makes you move. There's a moment in every person's journey when they face a decision. That moment doesn't look dramatic. There's no spotlight, no music, no audience. It's quiet. It happens when the alarm rings early, when the work gets hard, when the results are slow. In that moment, your excuse speaks first. It tells you to rest, to quit, to try again later. And then there's another voice, softer but stronger, that says, keep going. The path you choose in that moment determines your direction. Not your talent, not your background, your choice. Comfort zones are dangerous because they don't feel dangerous. They feel familiar, they feel easy, they feel right. But staying where it's easy is the fastest way to guarantee you never reach what's possible. The comfort zone is like a room with invisible walls. You don't see them, but you feel them every time you try to stretch beyond what you've always done. Excuses are those walls. They stop you before effort begins. They convince you that the limit is real when it's actually self-created. You have to understand something powerful. Excuses don't remove responsibility, they delay it. Sooner or later, life will ask you what you did with your time, your talent, your opportunities. And in that moment, excuses won't answer for you. They won't stand beside you. They won't carry the weight of regret. That weight belongs to you. That's why letting go of excuses isn't just about productivity. It's about ownership. It's about deciding that your future is too important to be negotiated away by temporary comfort. The truth is, effort is hard. Discipline is hard. Consistency is hard. But you know what's harder? Living with the feeling that you could have done more but didn't. Regret is heavier than effort will ever be. Regret doesn't fade overnight. It lingers. It reminds you of chances you didn't take, risks you didn't try, work you didn't finish. Excuses might protect you from struggle today, but they guarantee disappointment tomorrow. When you realize that, comfort stops looking attractive and starts looking expensive. Breaking out of excuses requires honesty. Not surface honesty, but deep honesty. The kind where you stop blaming circumstances and start examining choices. It's easy to say the world is against you. It's harder to ask whether you're against yourself. It's easy to point at obstacles. It's harder to admit you stopped climbing. But that honesty is where freedom begins. Because once you admit an excuse is just a disguise, it loses its power. It can't control you once you see it clearly. Action is the enemy of excuses. Excuses survive in hesitation, in overthinking, in waiting for the perfect moment. Action destroys them. The second you start moving, the excuse loses its voice. When you take one step, then another, you prove to yourself that the barrier wasn't real. Momentum replaces doubt. Progress replaces fear. And suddenly, the comfort zone that once felt safe starts to feel small. You don't need permission to leave your comfort zone. You don't need approval, validation, or guarantees. All you need is a decision that your goals matter more than your excuses, a decision that growth matters more than comfort, a decision that who you can become matters more than who you've been. Decisions like that are powerful because they shift your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who does. There will still be days when excuses show up. They always do. They'll come when you're tired, when progress is slow, when results aren't visible yet. But those days are tests, not barriers. They test whether you're committed or just interested. Interested people stop when it's uncomfortable. Committed people continue when it's inconvenient. The difference between the two is not ability, it's determination. The moment you recognize that excuses are comfort zones in disguise is the moment you gain control. So once you see them clearly, you can challenge them. You can question them. You can replace them. Instead of saying you can't, you ask how you can. Instead of saying it's too hard, you ask what it will take. Instead of saying maybe later, you say start now. That shift in language becomes a shift in mindset. And that shift in mindset becomes a shift in results. Your life expands in proportion to the number of excuses you eliminate. Every excuse you remove opens space for growth. Every reason you reject strengthens your discipline. Every step you take beyond comfort increases your confidence. And confidence built through action is unshakable because it's not based on hope. It's based on proof. So whenever you hear yourself explaining why you can't, pause and listen closely. Ask whether that explanation is truth or just comfort speaking. Ask whether it's guiding you forward or holding you still. And if it's holding you still, let it go. Because the path to progress has never been paved with excuses. It's been built by people who refuse to let comfort decide their future. Responsibility is the first step toward power, yet most people spend their lives running from it because they misunderstand what responsibility really means. They think responsibility is pressure, burden, or blame. They see it as weight on their shoulders instead of strength in their hands. But responsibility is not a punishment. Responsibility is permission. It is the moment you stop waiting for someone else to change your life and realize that you hold the pen that writes your story. The instant you accept responsibility, you stop being a passenger and become the driver. Look closely at people who feel stuck, and you'll often hear the same language. They blame their past, their environment, their lack of resources, their bad luck, or other people's decisions. Blame feels comforting because it removes obligation. If something isn't your fault, then you don't have to fix it. But that comfort comes with a hidden cost. When you blame everything outside yourself, you also give everything outside yourself control over your future. Blame might protect your pride, but it weakens your power. Responsibility, on the other hand, might sting at first, but it strengthens you immediately. Power begins the moment you say, "It's on me." Not because everything is your fault, but because your response is always your choice. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control what you do about it. That realization is life-changing. It means no obstacle is final unless you decide it is. It means no setback can define you unless you let it. Responsibility shifts your focus from what you can't control to what you can, and that shift is where real strength lives. There is something transformative about ownership. When you own your actions, you sharpen your awareness. You start noticing your habit, your patterns, your decisions. You stop drifting and start directing. Instead of saying life is happening to you, you start asking how you can shape it. Ownership turns complaints into plans. It turns frustration into strategy. It turns waiting into working. That is why responsibility is powerful. It forces movement. It refuses to let you sit still in excuses. Many people want power without responsibility, but that combination doesn't exist. Wanting results without ownership is like wanting to reach a destination without taking a step. It sounds nice, but it doesn't work. Power is not given to those who avoid responsibility. It is earned by those who accept it fully. When you accept responsibility, you build trust with yourself. You prove that you can rely on your own word, your own discipline, your own effort. That self-trust becomes confidence, and confidence is one of the strongest forms of power a person can possess. Responsibility also changes how you see obstacles. Instead of seeing them as stop signs, you start seeing them as instructions. A problem becomes a question. What can I do about this? A setback becomes feedback. What can I learn from this? A failure becomes a lesson. How can I improve? This mindset doesn't deny difficulty. It transforms it. It takes the same situation that defeats one person and turns it into fuel for another. The difference isn't luck. The difference is ownership. When you truly accept responsibility, you stop needing constant motivation. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop searching for the perfect moment. Responsibility teaches you that action is not based on mood. It's based on commitment. Some days you'll feel energized. Other days you won't. But when you've claimed responsibility for your life, you act anyway. That consistency builds momentum, and momentum builds results. Over time, those results compound into progress that once seemed impossible. There's a quiet strength in people who take responsibility. They don't waste time making excuses or pointing fingers. They ask questions, find solutions, and move forward. They understand that energy spent complaining is energy stolen from progress. So instead of arguing with reality, they work with it. Instead of wishing things were easier, they become stronger. Their attitude doesn't just change outcomes, it changes identity. You begin to see yourself as capable, resilient, and in control. That self-image fuels even more growth. Responsibility is also freedom, even though it sounds like the opposite. When you accept responsibility, you free yourself from dependence on circumstances. You're no longer trapped by what others do or don't do. You're no longer limited by waiting for permission or approval. You realize that your direction is determined by your decision. That realization is liberating It means progress is always available because effort is always within your reach. Some people fear responsibility because they think it means carrying alone, but real responsibility isn't isolation. It's initiative. It means you take the first step instead of waiting for someone else to take it for you. It means you lead yourself before trying to lead others. It means you hold yourself accountable before demanding accountability from the world. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. People begin to trust you, respect you, and follow you. Responsibility naturally creates influence, and influence is another form of power. Every great achievement starts with someone deciding to take responsibility for more than what was required. They didn't say, "That's not my job." They said, "I'll handle it." They didn't say, "Oh, someone should fix this. I'll start." That willingness to step forward separates those who dream from those who accomplish. Responsibility is the dividing line between intention and action. Without it, goals remain wishes. With it, wishes become plans. You don't have to take responsibility for your whole life all at once. Power often begins with small ownership, taking responsibility for waking up on time, for finishing what you start, for keeping promises to yourself, for showing up even when it's inconvenient. Those small acts seem ordinary, but they build extraordinary discipline. And discipline is power in its purest form because it means you can rely on yourself no matter what you feel. As you practice responsibility, you'll notice something else. Your excuses start disappearing. They don't vanish because life gets easier. They vanish because you stop needing them. You realize excuses don't solve problems. They only delay solutions. Responsibility, on the other hand, forces progress. It might be slow. It might be difficult, but it's always forward. And forward movement, no matter how small, is still victory over stagnation. There will be moments when responsibility feels heavy. Moments when it will be easier to blame, to quit, or to avoid. But those are the moments that matter most because every time you choose responsibility in a hard moment, you strengthen your character. You build resilience. You prove to yourself that you are stronger than your circumstances. And once you know that, fear loses its grip. Doubt loses its voice. Hesitation loses its hold. Power doesn't arrive suddenly. It grows. It builds layer by layer, decision by decision, action by action. Responsibility is the foundation of that growth. Without it, nothing stable can stand. With it, everything becomes possible. The more responsibility you accept, the more capable you become. The more capable you become, the more confident you feel. And the more confident you feel, the more boldly you act. So when you think about power, don't picture control over others. Picture control over yourself, control over your habits, your choices, your direction. That is the highest form of power anyone can have. And it begins with a simple but profound decision. You take responsibility, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the moment you accept responsibility is the moment you step into your strength, claim your authority, and realize that the life you want isn't waiting somewhere in the distance. It's waiting on your willingness to own it. Your circumstances don't define your ceiling unless you allow them to. And that truth is one of the most powerful realizations a person can ever have. Many people look at where they were born, what they were given, what they lacked, and they quietly decide how far they believe they can go. They measure their potential by their environment instead of their effort. They let temporary conditions become permanent conclusions, but circumstances are only starting points. They are not final destination, and they are certainly not limits, unless you accept them as limits in your mind. It's easy to believe that your situation determines your future because that idea feels logical. If you start with less, it seems reasonable to expect less. If you face obstacles, it seems natural to assume progress will be slower. If people doubt you, it feels convincing to doubt yourself. But history, experience, and reality all prove the same thing again and again. Where you begin does not dictate where you can finish. Some of the strongest, most successful, and most influential individuals started in conditions that looked impossible. What separated them from everyone else wasn't luck or privilege. It was the decision not to let circumstances speak louder than belief. Circumstances are temporary. They change with time, with effort, with persistence, and with courage. Yet many people treat them as permanent. They say this is just how life is. They say this is all they can expect. They say this is their limit. But a limit is not something the world assigns to you. A limit is something you accept. The moment you accept it, it becomes real. The moment you challenge it, it begins to weaken. That's why mindset is so powerful. Your mind is the place where ceilings are either built or broken. When someone believes their circumstances define them, they stop trying before they even start. They hesitate. They hold back. They lower their goals so they don't risk disappointment. But that hesitation becomes the very thing that holds them down. Not the circumstances themselves, but the belief about those circumstances. Because once you believe you can't rise higher, you won't. Not because you're incapable, but because you never fully tried. Effort follows belief. If belief is small, effort will be small. If belief is strong, effort will grow. The truth is that circumstances can influence you, but they do not have to control you. Influence is not destiny. Influence is pressure, and pressure can be resisted. Think of pressure like wind. It can push against you, slow you down, and make your journey harder. But wind cannot stop a determined person who keeps walking. It may take more strength, more patience, more persistence, but progress is still possible. The wind does not decide your direction. You do. One of the greatest shifts you can make in your life is to stop asking what your circumstances are and start asking what you can do with them. That question changes everything. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you focus on what you can use. Instead of complaining about what you don't have, you maximize what you do have. That mindset turns limitations into tools. It transforms obstacles into training. It makes challenges serve your growth instead of stopping it. People who rise beyond their circumstances share one powerful trait. They refuse to let their current reality predict their final outcome. They see their situation as a chapter, not the whole story. They understand that struggle is not proof of failure. It is proof of effort. It is proof of movement. It is proof that they are trying. And trying is always stronger than surrendering. Because as long as you are trying, you are still changing. As long as you are changing, your circumstances are not fixed. Your ceiling is not built by your environment. It is built by your decisions. Every choice you make either raises that ceiling or lowers it. Choosing discipline raises it. Choosing growth raises it. Choosing comfort lowers it. Over time, those choices stack. They create momentum in one direction or the other. And eventually that momentum becomes your reality. That's why responsibility for your choices matters more than the situation you started in. Circumstances may set the stage, but decisions write the script. It's important to understand that refusing to be defined by your circumstances doesn't mean pretending they don't exist. Challenges are real. Struggles are real. Barriers are real. But recognizing reality is different from surrendering to it. Strength is not denied. Strength is determination. It is the willingness to say, this may be difficult, but it will not stop me. Movement is what creates change. Stagnation is what preserves limitation. Growth often begins the moment you stop asking why your situation is hard and start asking how you can rise anyway. That shift from why to how is the difference between feeling stuck and becoming strong. Why focus is on problems. How focus is on solution. Why looks backward. How looks forward. When you choose how, you choose progress. You choose action. You choose possibility. And possibility is the enemy of limitation. Many people wait for their circumstances to improve before they take action. They say they'll start when things get easier, when they have more resources, when they feel more confident. But waiting for perfect conditions is one of the fastest ways to stay exactly where you are. Progress doesn't begin when circumstances change. Circumstances begin to change when you take progress seriously. Action is what shifts reality. Effort is what reshapes opportunity. Movement is what creates momentum. Your story is not written by where you stand right now, written by where you stand right now. It is written by what you decide to do next. Every step forward challenges the idea that your situation defines you. Every effort you make proves that your potential is larger than your present. Every time you refuse to quit, you raise your ceiling a little higher. Over time, those small increases add up. They turn what once seemed impossible into something achievable, and what once seemed distant into something within reach. The most powerful thing you can remember is this. Ceilings are not fixed structures. They are adjustable limits. And the person who adjusts them is you, not your past, not your environment, not your doubts. You, the moment you decide that just will not define your future, is the moment you break the invisible barrier that's been holding you back. From that point on, your growth is no longer restricted by where you started. It is determined by how far you're willing to go. So never measure your potential by your present condition. Measure it by your persistence, your effort, and your willingness to rise. Circumstances may describe where you are, but they do not dictate where you can go. Your ceiling is not something the world sets above you. It is something you either accept or push higher. And if you choose to push, if you choose to rise, if you choose to believe that your future can be bigger than your current reality, no circumstance, no matter how difficult, can truly hold you down. Because the only real limit is the one you refuse to challenge. And once you challenge it, it stops being a ceiling and starts becoming a doorway. Discipline beats motivation every time because motivation is a feeling and feelings are unreliable. They change with the weather, with your mood, with your level of comfort, with how much sleep you got, and with how many obstacles show up in your path. Motivation can make you feel unstoppable in one moment and completely drained in the next. Discipline, on the other hand, does not ask how you feel. Discipline asks what needs to be done. That is why it wins. Motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you moving long after the excitement fades. People love motivation because it feels good. It gives you a rush of energy and a burst of confidence. It makes you believe that anything is possible. But the problem is that motivation is temporary. It's like a spark. It can light a fire, but it cannot keep the fire burning by itself. Sooner or later, the spark disappears. And when it does, most people stop working. They think the loss of motivation means they've lost their drive. In reality, they just never built discipline. Discipline is different. Discipline is different, it's steady, it's consistent, it is dependable. It shows up on the days when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you're bored, and when you rather be doing anything else. Discipline doesn't disappear when things get hard. It becomes stronger. That's because discipline is not based on emotion. It is based on decision. When you decide that something must be done, discipline turns that decision into action again and again until progress becomes unavoidable. The truth most people don't want to hear is that motivation is overrated. It's nice, it's exciting, it's inspiring, but it's not enough. If motivation were enough, everyone who felt inspired would succeed. Everyone who watched a powerful video would change their life. Everyone who set a New Year's goal would achieve it. But that's not what happens. Inspiration fades, enthusiasm drops, and goals get abandoned. Not because people are incapable, but because they relied on motivation instead of discipline. Discipline is what carries you when motivation is gone. It's what gets you out of bed when your mind tells you to sleep longer. It's what pushes you to practice when you feel like resting. It's what keeps you focused when distractions are calling your name. Discipline is the voice that says, keep going, when every excuse is begging you to stop. And the more you listen to that voice, the louder it becomes. Over time, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. One of the most powerful things about discipline is that it builds trust with yourself. Every time you do what you say you would do, you strengthen that trust. You prove that your words mean something. You prove that your commitments matter, and that self-trust changes everything. It gives you confidence that no matter how difficult the journey gets, you won't quit. Motivation might make you believe you can succeed, but discipline proves that you will keep trying until you will keep trying until you do. Motivation waits for the right move. Discipline creates the right act. Motivation depends on excitement. Discipline depends on structure. Motivation needs inspiration. Discipline needs a plan. That's why disciplined people outperform motivated people in the long run. They don't rely on feelings. They rely on systems. They build routines that carry them forward automatically, so they don't have to argue with themselves every day about whether or not they should work. The decision has already been made. There will be mornings when you don't feel like trying. There will be evening when you want to quit. There will be moments when progress seems slow and results seem far away. Those are the moments when motivation disappears. If motivation is your only fuel, that's where your journey ends. But if discipline is your foundation, that's where your strength begins. Because discipline doesn't care how far you still have to go. It only cares that you take the next step. Discipline also removes the drama from success. When you depend on motivation, everything feels intense. You're either extremely driven or completely unproductive. You're either all in or totally out. But discipline replaces those extremes with stability. It teaches you that progress is not about emotional highs. It's about steady effort. It's about showing up consistently, even when the work feels ordinary. And that consistency, repeated day after day, creates results that look extraordinary from the outside. Many people think discipline is restrictive, but in reality, it is free. It frees you from procrastination, from indecision, from the endless cycle of starting and stopping. It frees you from the stress of unfinished goals and broken promises. Discipline gives you direction. It gives you momentum. It gives you control. Instead of being pushed around by your feelings, you become guided by your purpose. And purpose is far more powerful than motion. Building discipline is not complicated, but it is challenging. It starts with small actions done consistently, waking up when you say you would, finishing what you start, practicing when you don't feel like it, choosing effort over ease. Each small act strengthens your self-control like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Eventually, what once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes routine. And once discipline becomes part of who you are, success stops feeling impossible and starts feeling inevitable. The greatest advantage discipline gives you is resilience. Life will test you. Plans will fail. Obstacles will appear. Motivation will vanish. But discipline will still be there, steady and unshaken, reminding you to continue. It doesn't promise that the road will be easy. It promises that you will keep walking. And as long as you keep walking, you are still progressing. So stop waiting to feel motivated before you act. Stop telling yourself you'll start when you feel ready. Feelings are unpredictable, but discipline is dependable. If you want real progress, choose discipline over motivation every single time. Because motivation can spark your journey, but only discipline can finish it. Understand this clearly. The people you admire are not the people who always feel motivated. They are the people who train themselves to act regardless of emotion. They learned to separate feeling from function. They understood that success is not built on bursts of excitement, but on repetition of effort. While others waited to feel ready, they prepared. While others searched for inspiration, they executed. While others talked about goals, they worked on them quietly. That's the hidden power of discipline. It operates whether anyone is watching or not. It continues whether applause exists or not. It persists whether results appear quickly or slowly. And because it persists, it produces. Over time, that production compounds into skill, into confidence, into achievement. Suddenly, people call them talented, gifted, or lucky, not realizing that what they are really seeing is the visible result of invisible discipline practice day after day. So if you truly want an advantage in life, don't chase motivation. Build discipline. Protect it. Strengthen it. Rely on it. Because when motivation fades, discipline remains. And the one thing that remains is always more powerful than the thing that comes and goes. Choose what lasts, commit to what works, and you will rise while others wait, proving through action that discipline truly defeats motivation every single time. Delay is the enemy of destiny because time is the one resource you can never reclaim once it slips through your hands. You can earn more, learn more skills, meet new people, and rebuild after failure. But you cannot rewind a single minute that has passed. Every moment, you postpone action. You quietly give away a piece of your future. Delay doesn't always look dangerous. It often looks harmless. Like telling yourself you'll start tomorrow, next week, or when conditions feel better. But what feels harmless in the present can become harmful over time because destiny is not built on intention. It's built on execution. Most people don't realize how powerful delay really is. They think it's just waiting, just resting, just taking a break. But delay is rarely neutral. It is either moving you closer to your goal or farther away from it. When you delay action, opportunities don't freeze and wait politely for you to return. They move, they pass, they shift towards someone who is ready to act. Life rewards motion, not hesitation. The world responds to those who step forward, not those who stand still planning their first step forever. Delay is dangerous because it disguises itself as preparation. It tells you that you need more time, more research, more certainty, more confidence before you begin. It convinces you that waiting is wise and postponing is responsible. But often that voice is not wisdom. It is fear wearing the mask of logic. Fear of failing, fear of judgment, fear of imperfection. Instead of admitting fear, people call it timing. They say it's not the right moment yet. But the truth is, the perfect moment rarely arrives. Progress belongs to those who start before they feel completely ready. Destiny is not something that appears suddenly one day. It is something that is constructed slowly through consistent action. Every step you take builds it. Every action you complete strengthens it. Every day you show up moves it forward. But every delay weakens it. Not because your dream disappears instantly, but because momentum fades. Momentum is fragile. It grows when you act and it shrinks when you hesitate. Once momentum is lost, restarting becomes harder. Not because the task changed, but because your energy did. Think about how many dreams are not destroyed by failure, but by delay. Failure at least means someone tried. Delay often means someone never truly began. There are ideas that never become reality, talents that never become skill, and goals that never become achievements simply because they were postponed too many times. Not canceled, not rejected, just delayed until they slowly disappeared under the weight of procrastination. Delay doesn't kill dreams loudly. It erases them quietly. One of the greatest illusions people believe is that they have plenty of time. They assume there will always be another chance, another opportunity, another moment to start. But time is not guaranteed. Days turn into weeks, weeks into years, and suddenly the future you thought was far away is standing in front of you, asking what you did with the time you were given. That question is powerful because it cannot be answered with plans, it can only be answered with action. The longer you delay, the heavier starting feels. Tasks grow larger in your mind, doubts grow louder. The effort seems bigger than it actually is. This is the trap of postponement. Waiting does not make things easier. It often makes them more intimidating. Action is what reduces fear. Movement is what builds clarity. Starting is what creates confidence. When you delay, you deny yourself all three. There is a special kind of confidence that only comes from doing. Not thinking about doing, not talking about doing, but actually doing. Each time you act, you prove to yourself that you can move forward despite uncertainty. That proof strengthens your belief. That belief fuels your courage. And that courage pushes you to act again. But when you delay, you interrupt that cycle. Instead of confidence, you build doubt. Instead of momentum, you build hesitation. Instead of progress, you build excuses. Delay also steals opportunities you cannot see yet. You cannot see yet. Some chance only appear when you're already in motion. Some doors only open after you've taken the first step. If you never begin, you never reach those doors. It's not that opportunity ignored you. It's that opportunity couldn't find you because you were still standing at the starting line. Movement attracts possibility. Stillness repels it. People who achieve their goals are not people who never feel fear or uncertainty. They feel those things just like everyone else. The difference is they refuse to let delay control them. They understand that action doesn't require perfection. It requires decision. They start before they feel fully prepared. They begin before they have every answer. They move while others are still debating whether or not they should try. And because they move, they learn. Because they learn, they improve. Because they improve, they progress. Delay convinces you that you are safe. But what it really does is keep you stuck. It keeps you in the same place, with the same results, repeating the same thoughts about what you could do someday. Destiny, however, lives in motion. It lives in effort. It lives in the willingness to step forward even when the path isn't completely clear. Destiny is not waiting for you to feel ready. It is waiting for you to begin. There will never be a time when everything is perfect. There will always be something unfinished, something uncertain, something unpredictable. If you wait for perfection, you will wait forever. Progress does not require perfect condition. It requires present action. Starting messy is better than waiting endlessly. Imperfect action is stronger than perfect intention. The first step, no matter how small, is more powerful than the most detailed plan that never gets used. When you act immediately, you send a message to yourself that your goals matter. You prove that your dreams are priorities, not just wishes. That proof changes how you see yourself. You begin to identify as someone who executes, not someone who delays. That identity is powerful because it shapes your future behavior. You start acting faster, deciding quicker, and moving with purpose. Over time, that habit of action becomes your advantage. Destiny is not reserved for the most talented or the most fortunate. It is often claimed by the most decisive. The ones who refuse to wait, the ones who understand that hesitation is costly, the ones who know that every moment spent delaying is a moment that could have been spent building. They don't rush recklessly, but they also don't stall endlessly. They choose progress over postponement again and again until progress becomes their nature. If you want to protect your future, you must learn to confront delay the moment it appears. The second you hear yourself saying later, question it. The second you feel yourself hesitating, challenge it. The second you think about postponing, act instead. Because delay grows stronger the longer you entertain it, but it weakens the instant you move. In the end, destiny is shaped by daily decisions. Not dramatic ones, but small, consistent choices to act now instead of later. Start today instead of someday. To move forward instead of standing still. Those choices seem small in the moment, but over time, they build a life. And that is why delay is the enemy of destiny. Not because time is cruel, but because time is honest. It gives results only to those who use it. And the people who refuse to delay, who choose action again and again, are the ones who eventually look back and realize they didn't just dream about their destiny. They built it step by step, moment by moment, without waiting for permission from time. Ownership turns victims into victors because the moment a person decides to take responsibility for their life, they step out of the powerless mindset that keeps them stuck and step into a position of strength that allows them to grow. A victim mindset focuses on what happened, who caused it, and why it wasn't fair. An ownership mindset focuses on what can be done now, what can be learned, and how things can be improved. The situation may be the same, but the perspective changes everything. Perspective is powerful because it determines whether you stay where you are or start moving forward. Many people don't realize they're living with a victim mentality because it doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it sounds like ordinary complaint. It sounds like blaming circumstances, blaming other people, blaming timing, or blaming luck. It sounds like saying life is harder for you than for everyone else. And while challenges are real and struggles are real, staying trapped in blame gives those struggles control over you. Blame hands your power to whatever you blame. Ownership takes that power back. Ownership does not mean everything that happened to you was your fault. It means your response is your responsibility. That distinction is important. You are not responsible for every obstacle that appears in your life, but you are responsible for what you choose to do about it. That realization is liberating because it means no matter what situation you face, you are never completely powerless. There's always a choice, always an action, always a step you can take. And that step, no matter how small, is where victory begins. When someone sees themselves as a victim, they often wait. They wait for rescue, for recognition, for opportunity, for someone to notice their struggle and fix it. Waiting feels logical because it seems like change must come from outside. But waiting rarely leads to transformation. Ownership changes that pattern. Instead of waiting, you start working. Instead of hoping, you start building. Instead of wishing, you start doing. Action replaces expectation. And once action begins, progress becomes possible. Ownership also strengthens your mindset. It teaches you to ask powerful questions instead of helpless ones. A victim asks, why is this happening to me? The person who takes ownership asks, what can I do about this? The first question leads to frustration. The second leads to solutions. Questions shape thinking, and thinking shapes behavior. When you consistently ask solution-focused questions, your mind begins searching for answers instead of excuses. That shift alone can change the direction of your life. There's something incredibly empowering about realizing that your effort matters more than your circumstances. Circumstances can influence your path, but they don't have to define your destination. Ownership reminds you that while you may not control every event, you always control your attitude, your effort, and your persistence. Those three things are powerful enough to change outcomes over time. They may not create instant results, but they create steady progress. And steady progress is stronger than sudden luck. People who embrace ownership develop resilience. They don't collapse when things go wrong because they understand that setbacks are part of growth. Instead of seeing difficulty as proof they can't succeed, they see it as training. They adapt. They adjust. They try again. Each challenge becomes a lesson instead of a defeat. That mindset is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. The difference isn't talent or background. It's the willingness to own the process. Ownership also builds confidence, and not the loud, temporary kind that depends on praise. It builds quiet, lasting confidence rooted in evidence. Every time you take responsibility and follow through, you prove to yourself that you can handle challenges. That proof becomes belief. That belief becomes courage. And that courage allows you to face even bigger challenges without fear controlling you. Confidence built this way cannot be easily shaken because it is based on experience, not opinion. One of the most powerful transformations happens when you stop saying, "This is happening to me," and start saying, "This is happening for me to grow." That simple shift changes your relationship with difficulty. Problems stop looking like punishments and start looking like preparation. Obstacles stop looking like barriers and start looking like opportunities to become stronger. When you see life this way, you stop feeling attacked by circumstances and start feeling trained by them. Ownership also eliminates excuses. Excuses thrive in environments where responsibility is avoided. But when you fully accept ownership, excuses lose their purpose. You don't need them anymore because you're no longer trying to escape responsibility. Instead, you're using responsibility as fuel. You understand that every excuse you remove increases your strength. Every reason you reject increases your discipline. Every action you take increases your momentum. Becoming a victor doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. It means you become stronger. Challenges will still exist. Obstacles will still appear. Difficult days will still come. But instead of feeling defeated by them, you face them with determination. Victory is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision not to surrender. Ownership gives you that decision. It reminds you that even when you cannot control the storm, you can still control how you steer your ship. Another powerful effect of ownership is clarity. When you stop blaming everything around you, you begin to see yourself more honestly. You recognize your habits, your patterns, your strengths, and your weaknesses. That awareness is not meant to discourage you. It is meant to guide you. Because once you see clearly, you can improve intentionally. You can change what isn't working. You can strengthen what is. Growth becomes deliberate instead of accidental. Ownership also inspires others. People are drawn to those who take responsibility because responsibility signals strength and reliability. When others see you refusing to complain, refusing to quit, and refusing to make excuses, they notice. Your example becomes proof that progress is possible. Without saying a word, you show them that circumstances don't have to control them either. In that way, ownership doesn't just transform you. It creates a ripple effect that can influence everyone around you. The journey from victim to victor is not a single decision. It is a daily commitment. Every day you choose whether you will blame or build, complain or create, wait or work. Each choice shapes your identity. Over time, those choices form habits, and those habits form character. Character is powerful because it determines how you respond when life tests you. A strong character stands firm. A weak one collapses. Ownership is what strengthens that character day by day. You don't have to change your entire life overnight to become a victor. Transformation often begins with small acts of responsibility. Finishing where you start, keeping promises to yourself. Keeping promises to yourself. What do you mean? Admitting mistakes instead of hiding them. Learning instead of complaining. Those actions may seem simple, but they are the building blocks of personal power. As they stack up, they create momentum. And momentum makes growth feel natural instead of forced. In the end, ownership is the dividing line between those who feel stuck and those who move forward. It is the force that turns pain into purpose, struggle into strength, and setbacks into stepping stones. The moment you accept ownership, you stop seeing yourself as someone life happens to and start seeing yourself as someone who can shape what happens next. That shift changes everything because it places the direction of your life back into your hands. And once your life is in your hands, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are a builder of possibility, a creator of progress, and a person capable of rising no matter where you started. No matter where you started. That is why ownership turns victims into victors, not through magic, not through luck, but through the steady, powerful decision to take responsibility, take action, and refuse to give up control of the future you are capable of creating. Winners act first and justify later because they understand something most people never fully grasp. Action creates clarity, while hesitation creates doubt. The average person waits for perfect understanding before they begin. They want every detail mapped out, every risk eliminated, every outcome guaranteed. But life rarely offers that kind of certainty. If you wait until everything makes complete sense, you'll spend most of your life standing still. Winners know that movement reveals answers that thinking alone never can. They step forward not because they know everything, but because they trust they will figure things out along the way. Action has a unique power. It breaks fear. Fear thrives in stillness, in overthinking, in imagining worst-case scenarios. The longer you sit and analyze every possible outcome, the more intimidating those outcomes appear. But the moment you act, fear loses its grip. Even a small step forward weakens its voice. That's why decisive people often appear confident. It's not that they never feel fear. It's that they refuse to let fear delay their first move. They understand that confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you build through action. When winners act first, they aren't being reckless. They're being strategic in a different way. They know that no plan survives unchanged once reality enters the picture. Conditions shift. Obstacles appear. Opportunities emerge unexpectedly. If you spend all your time planning and none of your time doing your plan, will remain theoretical. Winners treat action as part of the planning process. They start, observe what happens, adjust, and continue. Each step gives them new information. That information makes their next step smarter. Over time, that cycle of action and adjustment becomes their advantage. Many people hesitate because they want approval before they begin. They want reassurance that their effort will succeed, that others will support them, that the outcome will be worth it. But approval is rarely granted in advance. Most of the time, it comes after results. Winners understand this, so they don't wait for validation. They create results first, and those results become their justification. Success speaks louder than explanation. When people see progress, they stop questioning why you started and start asking how you did it. There is also a hidden momentum in acting quickly. The first step is always the hardest because it requires breaking inertia. Inertia keeps people comfortable where they are. It tells them that staying still is safer than moving forward. But once motion begins, momentum takes over. Movement creates energy, and energy fuels more movement. Winners take advantage of that principle. They focus less on making the perfect decision and more on making a decision. Because they know a decision followed by action can always be adjusted, but indecision keeps you stuck exactly where you are. Acting first also builds resilience. When you move quickly, you inevitably face challenges sooner. You encounter mistakes, missteps, and unexpected results. But instead of seeing those experiences as failures, winners see them as feedback. Feedback is valuable because it teaches faster than theory ever could. A lesson learned through action tends to stick, while a lesson learned only through thought can easily be forgotten. Each attempt sharpens skill, strengthens awareness, and increases understanding. Over time, those lessons accumulate into expertise. Another reason winners act first is because they understand the cost of waiting. Opportunities are rarely permanent. They appear, they exist for a moment, and then they pass. Waiting too long can mean missing chances that will never return. Winners train themselves to recognize opportunity quickly and respond immediately. They don't assume there will always be another chance. They treat each opportunity as valuable in the present. That urgency gives them an edge because while others are still deciding whether to try, they are already learning, improving, and progressing. Acting before you feel fully ready requires courage. It means accepting uncertainty. It means risking mistakes. It means stepping into situations where you might not have all the answers, but courage is not about certainty. It's about willingness. It's the willingness to move forward despite not knowing exactly how everything will unfold. Winners cultivate that willingness because they know growth lives on the other side of uncertainty. If you only act when you feel completely prepared, you'll limit yourself to situations that don't stretch you. And if you're never stretched, you never grow. Justifying later doesn't mean ignoring responsibility. It means understanding that results are the strongest explanation. When you take action and produce progress, you don't need long speeches to defend your decision. Your work speaks for you. Your consistency proves your seriousness. Your results demonstrate your capability. Words can persuade people temporarily, but results convince them permanently. Winners focus on creating that proof rather than explaining their intentions over and over again. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you act quickly. You start to see yourself differently. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who thinks about goals, you begin to see yourself as someone who pursues them. That identity shift is powerful because behavior follows identity. When you identify as an action taker, you naturally take more action. When you identify as someone who hesitates, you naturally delay. Winners intentionally reinforce an identity of decisiveness by practicing it daily, even in small choices. People often assume that successful individuals have some special quality that makes action easy for them. In reality, most of them simply train themselves to move before doubt could stop them. Doubt grows with time. The longer you wait, the louder it becomes. Acting quickly cuts doubt off before it has a chance to take control. It's like stepping through a door before your mind has time to convince you not to. That habit of immediate movement becomes a shield against overthinking. Acting first also strengthens intuition. Intuition is not magic. It's the result of experience. The more actions you take, the more situations you encounter. The more situations you encounter, the more patterns you recognize. Over time, those patterns allow you to make faster and smarter decisions. But intuition cannot develop without action. If you never step forward, you never gather the experiences that sharpen your instincts. Winners understand this, so they prioritize doing over endless analyzing. There is a certain boldness in choosing action over hesitation. It sends a message to yourself and to the world that you trust your ability to handle what comes next. That trust is empowering. It replaces fear with focus. It replaces doubt with determination. And it turns challenges into opportunities to prove your capability. Each time you act despite uncertainty, you reinforce that trust. Each time you hesitate, you weaken it. Over time, those choices shape your confidence and your results. Acting first doesn't guarantee immediate success, but it guarantees progress. Even when outcomes aren't perfect, you gain knowledge. Even when results aren't ideal, you gain experience. Progress is valuable because it moves you forward. Standing still may feel safe, but it produces nothing. Movement, even imperfect movement, creates possibility. And possibility is where breakthroughs are born. Life rarely rewards those who wait for perfect conditions. It rewards those who are willing to begin with imperfect ones. Winners accept that truth early. They stop asking whether the timing is flawless and start asking whether the opportunity is real. If it is, they move. They trust that adjustments can be made later, lessons can be learned later, and improvements can be applied later. But action must happen now. That habit of acting first is what separates dreamers from achievers. Dreamers imagine what could be. Achievers step forward and test what could be. Dreamers wait for certainty. Achievers create certainty through effort. Dreamers explain why they haven't started yet. Achievers start and let their results explain everything. That is why winners act first and justify later. Not because they have all the answers, but because they know the answers are waiting on the other side of action. And the only way to reach them is to move before hesitation has the chance to hold them back. Consistency destroys excuses because excuses survive on inconsistency. They depend on gaps, delays, interruptions, and hesitation. Excuses grow stronger when your effort is unpredictable, when your focus comes and goes, and when your discipline only appears when you feel motivated. But consistency is different. Consistency is steady, reliable, and persistent. It shows up whether you feel like it or not. It operates whether conditions are perfect or messy, and because it keeps showing up, it leaves no room for excuses to survive. Excuses need absence to exist. Consistency removes that absence. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or potential. They fail because they lack consistency. They start strong and then fade. They push hard for a few days and then stop. They work when it feels exciting and quit when it feels routine. In those gaps, excuses slip in. They whisper reasons to pause, to delay, to wait until tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes next week. And next week becomes someday. That's how progress disappears. Not through dramatic failure, but through quiet inconsistency. Consistency is powerful because it turns effort into habit. When something becomes a habit, it stops feeling optional. It becomes part of your routine, part of your identity, part of who you are. Habits remove the need for daily debate. You don't wake up asking whether you should act. You wake up knowing you will. That certainty is what weakens excuses. Excuses try to argue, but habits don't negotiate. They simply continue. There's a difference between intense effort and consistent effort. Intense effort looks impressive in short bursts. It can create quick results and strong momentum. But if it isn't sustained, those results fade. Consistent effort may look ordinary in the moment. It may not seem dramatic or exciting, but it compounds, builds layer upon layer of progress until ordinary effort produces extraordinary outcomes. Consistency doesn't rely on bursts. It relies on repetition. And repetition is what transforms skill, strength, and success from possibility into reality. Excuses often sound convincing because they appeal to logic. They say you're too tired, too busy, too stressed, or too distracted. They present reasonable, but consistency doesn't argue with excuses. It ignores them. It replaces discussion with action. It replaces hesitation with movement. When you act consistently, you don't give excuses time to persuade you. You move before doubt has the chance to speak. That habit of immediate action is one of the strongest defenses against procrastination. Another reason consistency is so powerful is because it builds evidence. Every time you show up, you create proof that you can follow through. That proof strengthens your belief in yourself. It reminds you that you are capable of discipline, capable of persistence, capable of finishing what you start. Belief built on evidence is stronger than belief built on hope. Hope can fade when challenges appear. Evidence remains. And the more evidence you collect through consistent action, the harder it becomes for excuses to convince you that you can't continue. Consistency also simplifies your life. When you act regularly, you don't have to constantly restart. Starting is always the hardest part. It requires energy, focus, and willpower. If you stop repeatedly, you force yourself to face that difficult beginning again and again. But when you stay consistent, you stay in motion. Momentum carries you forward. Momentum makes effort feel lighter. Momentum turns difficult tasks into manageable ones. And momentum is something excuses fear, because momentum leaves them behind. People often think consistency requires perfection, but that belief itself can become an excuse. Consistency doesn't mean flawless performance. It means continued effort. It means showing up even when you're not at your best. It means doing what you can with what you have, instead of waiting for the perfect moment to do everything. Imperfect consistency is far more powerful than perfect inconsistency. Small actions repeated daily will always outperform big actions attempted once in a while. There's also a quiet confidence that grows inside people who practice consistency. It's not loud or flashy, but it's strong. It comes from knowing that you can rely on yourself. When you promise to do something and then you do it again and again, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes discipline. That discipline becomes strength. And that strength becomes freedom. Because once you know you can depend on yourself, you stop fearing challenges. You know you can handle them through steady effort. Consistency changes how you see obstacles. Instead of seeing them as reasons to stop, you see them as things to work through. When you're used to showing up every day, a challenge doesn't feel like a wall. It feels like part of the path. You don't panic. You don't retreat. You adjust and continue. That attitude makes excuses powerless, because excuses rely on obstacles to justify quitting. When obstacles no longer stop you, excuses lose their main argument. Over time, consistency compounds into mastery. Skills sharpen. Knowledge deepens. Confidence grows. Results improve. None of that happens overnight. It happens slowly, through repeated effort that may feel small in the moment but becomes powerful in the long run. People often admire mastery without seeing the consistency behind it. They see the result, but not the repetition that created it. What looks like talent is often consistency practiced for longer than anyone else was willing to practice. Consistency also builds resilience. When you show up regularly, you learn how to keep going even when conditions aren't ideal. You learn how to work through fatigue, distractions, and setbacks. You learn that progress doesn't require perfect circumstances. It requires persistence. That lesson is invaluable because life would never provide perfect conditions all the time. There will always be challenges. Consistency prepares you to handle them without losing direction. One of the most important things consistency does is change your identity. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who tries sometimes, you begin to see yourself as someone who shows up always. That shift is powerful because identity shapes behavior. When you believe you are consistent, you act consistently. When you act consistently, you reinforce that belief. It becomes a cycle that strengthens itself. And once that cycle is established, excuses have nowhere to attach themselves. They can't stick to someone who keeps moving. Consistency is also fair. It doesn't require special talent, special luck, or special circumstances. It only requires commitment. Anyone can practice it. Anyone can choose to show up again today, regardless of what happened yesterday. That accessibility makes it one of the most powerful tools for success. You don't need to be extraordinary to be consistent. But if you are consistent long enough, you will achieve extraordinary results. Excuses promise relief, but they deliver stagnation. Consistency demands effort, but it delivers progress. One keeps you comfortable in the moment. The other moves you forward over time. When you compare their outcomes, the choice becomes clear. Comfort fades quickly, but progress lasts. Temporary ease is never as valuable as lasting growth. The truth is that excuses cannot survive in an environment of daily action. They need breaks. They need pauses. They need hesitation. Take those away and they have nothing to stand on. Consistency is the force that takes them away. It replaces hesitation with habit, doubt with discipline, and delay with determination. It doesn't argue with excuses. It outworks them. If you want to eliminate excuses from your life, you don't need a dramatic transformation. You need a steady pattern. Show up today, show up today, show up tomorrow, show up the next day. Keep showing up until action becomes automatic. Because once action becomes automatic, excuses become irrelevant. They lose their voice. They lose their influence. They lose their power. And that's why consistency destroys excuses. Not through force, not through motivation, but through repetition. Quiet, steady, relentless repetition that proves day after day that progress belongs to those who continue, not those who pause. The pain of effort is temporary, but regret lasts forever. And understanding that truth can change the entire direction of your life. Effort is uncomfortable. There's no denying that. It demands energy when you feel tired, focus when you feel distracted, and persistence when you feel discouraged. Effort asks you to push past convenience, to stretch beyond what feels easy, and to keep going when your mind tells you to stop. In the moment, that discomfort can feel intense. It can feel heavy. It can feel like more than you want to carry. But what most people fail to realize is that the discomfort of effort has an expiration date. It fades. It passes. It ends. Regret, on the other hand, does not. Regret is different from effort because regret doesn't live in the body. It lives in the mind. Effort might make your muscles ache or your mind feel strained, but regret settles into your thoughts and stays there. It replays missed chances, ignored opportunities, and unfinished attempts. It whispers questions that can't be answered. What if you had tried? What if you had started? What if you had pushed a little harder? Those questions don't disappear easily. They linger, sometimes for years, sometimes for a lifetime. That is why regret is heavier than effort will ever be. In the moment of decision, effort always looks harder. When you're standing at the crossroads between action and avoidance, action seems demanding and avoidance seems comfortable. Effort asks something from you. It requires discipline, patience, and courage. Avoidance asks nothing. It lets you stay where you are, but that comfort is temporary. Avoidance borrows ease from your future and replaces it with regret later. Effort borrows discomfort from the present and replaces it with pride later. Both paths require payment. The only difference is when you pay and what you receive in return. People often underestimate how quickly effort's pain disappears. Think about the times you pushed yourself physically or mentally. Maybe you studied when you were exhausted, practiced when you felt unmotivated, or worked when you wanted to quit. In those moments, it felt difficult. But once it was done, the discomfort faded. What remained was relief, satisfaction, and sometimes even pride. That's the hidden reward of effort. The struggle doesn't last, but the growth does. The challenge ends, but the strength you built stays with you. Regret works in the opposite way. At first, it doesn't seem painful at all. Choosing not to try feels easy. Skipping the work feels relaxing. Postponing effort feels harmless. But later, when the opportunity has passed and the chance is gone, regret begins to appear. And unlike effort, regret doesn't fade quickly. It sticks. Reminds you of what could have been. It shows you the gap between where you are and where you might have been if you had just tried. That realization can be far more painful than any temporary struggle. One of the greatest tragedies in life is not failure, but hesitation. Failure at least proves that you tried. It shows courage. It shows initiative. It shows willingness. Hesitation shows none of those. Hesitation leaves you wondering what might have happened if you had acted. It leaves you imagining possibilities you never tested. And imagination kept true when it's filled with missed chances. The mind has a way of replaying those moments, especially when you see someone else succeed where you once had the chance to try. Effort is also powerful because it builds resilience. Every time you push through discomfort, you teach yourself that you are stronger than you thought. You expand your limits. You increase your endurance. What once felt difficult becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes achievable. That transformation is one of the greatest rewards effort can give. It changes how you see yourself. It turns doubt into belief and hesitation into confidence. Regret can never do that. Regret weakens confidence because it reminds you of moments when you didn't act. Effort strengthens confidence because it reminds you that you did. There is a certain peace that comes from knowing you gave something your all. Even if the outcome isn't perfect, even if the result isn't what you hoped for, the knowledge that you tried your best brings a deep sense of satisfaction. That satisfaction is powerful because it silences regret. When you truly put in effort, there's nothing left to question. No what if to question. No what if. No maybe. No doubt about whether you should have tried harder. Effort gives you closure. Regret keeps things open, unfinished, unresolved. Many people avoid effort because they fear discomfort, but discomfort is not the enemy. In fact, discomfort is often a sign of growth. Muscles grow by being challenged. Skills improve by being practiced. Confidence develops by being tested. None of those things happen in comfort. Comfort maintains. Effort transforms, and transformation is where progress lives. If you want your life to change, you have to be willing to face temporary discomfort because that discomfort is the price of improvement. It helps to remember that effort is always temporary even when it feels long. A difficult hour passes. A hard day, a challenging season eventually changes. Time moves forward no matter what, and with it the strain of effort fades. But regret doesn't follow the same rules. Regret can revisit you years later. It can resurface when you least expect it. A memory, a conversation, or an opportunity can bring it back instantly. That's because regret isn't tied to time. It's tied to unfinished action. The choice between effort and regret appears in small moments every day. It shows up when you decide whether to work or procrastinate, whether to practice or postpone, whether to try or avoid. Those decisions may seem minor in the moment, but they add up. Small efforts accumulate into big progress. Small delays accumulate into deep regret. Your future is shaped by which side you choose more often. Courage is not the absence of discomfort. Courage is the decision that something else matters more than comfort. When your goals matter more than ease, effort becomes easier to accept. When your dreams matter more than convenience, discipline becomes easier to maintain. Purpose has a way of making temporary pain feel worthwhile. Without purpose, effort feels like suffering. With purpose, effort feels like investment. There is also freedom in choosing effort. When you commit to trying, you free yourself from the fear of wondering. You free yourself from the burden of uncertainty about what you could have done. Trying gives you answers. Avoiding gives you questions. Answers bring peace. Questions often bring restlessness. That's why people who take action, even when it's hard, often feel lighter than those who avoid action to stay comfortable. As life moves forward, you will forget most of the discomfort you experienced while working hard. You will forget the strain, the fatigue, the stress. But you will remember the results. You will remember the growth. You will remember the moments when you proved to yourself that you could do more than you thought. Those memories become sources of strength. They remind you of what you're capable of. Regret does the opposite. It reminds you of what you didn't do, what you didn't attempt, what you didn't pursue. In the end, everyone experiences pain. The question is which pain you choose, the temporary pain of effort or the lasting pain of regret. One strengthens you, the other haunts you. One builds your future, the other reminds you of what you lost. One fades with time, the other can follow you for years. The decision between them happens in ordinary moments, not dramatic ones. It happens when you decide whether to push forward or hold back. So when you feel the weight of effort pressing on you, remember that it is only passing through. It is not there to stay. It is there to shape you, strengthen you, and prepare you. And when you're tempted to avoid that effort, remember what waits on the other side of avoidance. Because the discomfort of trying may be intense, but it is brief. The discomfort of regret may be quiet, but is lasting. And those who understand that truth choose effort, not because it's easy, but because it leads to a life they will never have to look back on and wish they had lived differently. So now the question is not whether excuses exist. They will always exist. The real question is whether you will continue to give them authority over your life or whether today is a day you finally strip them of their power. Because excuses don't control anyone by force, they only control those who agree with them. They only rule the mind that listens to them. And once you decide that their voice is no longer welcome, their influence begins to fade. That decision, that single moment of commitment is where transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not next week. Right now in this very breath, in this very second, in this very choice, you have to understand something powerful about yourself. You were not designed to live a life of hesitation. You were not built to stand still while your dreams move further away. You were not created to watch others rise while you remain where you are. There's something inside you that was made for growth, something inside you that was meant to stretch, to climb, to fight, to achieve. But that part of you cannot breathe in a life filled with excuses. Excuses suffocate potential. They silence ambition. They delay destiny. And the longer you entertain them, the heavier they become until they feel like chains holding you in place. But chains can be broken, not by wishing, not by complaining, not by waiting for motivation. Chains are broken by decision, followed by action. The moment you decide that your goals matter more than your comfort, something shifts. The moment you decide that progress matters more than convenience, something awakens, something awakens. The moment you decide that your future deserves more than your excuses, something ignites inside you. And once that fire's lit, it doesn't matter how many obstacles appear. Fire doesn't ask permission to burn. It burns because that's what it was created to do. And when your determination catches fire, excuses don't stand a chance. Think about how many opportunities are waiting for you on the other side of discipline. Opportunities you can't see yet. Doors you haven't opened yet. Victories you haven't experienced yet. They are not far away because they are impossible. They are far away because they require effort to reach. And effort is exactly what excuses try to prevent. Excuses want you comfortable, distracted, and delayed. They want you convinced that later is a better time than now. But later is the favorite hiding place of failure. Later is where dreams go to disappear. Later is where potential fades quietly without ever being tested. And action, even small action, is stronger than the most convincing excuse. One step forward is stronger than 1,000 reasons to stay still. One effort is stronger than 100 doubts. One disciplined choice is stronger than a lifetime of hesitation. Progress does not demand perfection. It demands movement. It demands that you refuse to stay where you are. It demands that you prove through your actions that you are serious about becoming more than you were yesterday. There will be days when it feels hard. Days when your energy is low, when your focus is scattered, when your motivation is nowhere to be found. Those days are not signs to stop. Those days are tests. They are moments to ask you one simple question. Are you committed or are you interested? Because interested people work when it's easy. Committed people work when it's difficult. Interested people show up when they feel like it. Committed people show up because they said they would. And the difference between those two mindsets is the difference between wishing for results and earning them. Understand this clearly. You don't defeat excuses by fighting them once. You defeat them by outgrowing them daily. Every time you act instead of delaying, you weaken them. Every time you persist instead of quitting, you silence them. Every time you discipline yourself, instead of distracting yourself, you rise above them. Growth is not a single victory. It is a pattern of victories repeated over time. And that pattern becomes your new normal, your new standard, your new identity. One day, if you stay consistent, you will look back at the person you used to be and barely recognize them. You'll remember the doubts that once stopped you, the fears that once froze you, the excuses that once convinced you to wait. And you'll realize that none of them were as powerful as they seemed. They only felt powerful because you listened to them. The moment you stopped listening, they lost their authority. The moment you started acting, they lost their grip. The moment you chose discipline, they lost their voice. That realization is freeing. It shows you that your progress was never controlled by outside forces. It was always influenced most by your own decisions. And if your decisions have that kind of power, imagine what happens when you fully commit to making the right one. Imagine what happens when your habits align with your goals. Imagine what happens when your daily actions match your deepest ambitions. That's when momentum becomes unstoppable. That is when growth becomes inevitable. That is when your life begins to change in ways you once thought were impossible. So stand up mentally, stand up emotionally, stand up spiritually, draw a line between who you are and who you are becoming. Leave the excuses on the side you are walking away from. They belong to your past, not your future. Your future belongs to effort, to discipline, to persistence, to courage. Your future belongs to the version of you that refuses to quit, refuses to delay, refuses to settle. And that version of you is not someone distant or unreachable. That version of you is waiting for permission to step forward. Permission that only you can give. Let this be the moment you give it. Let this be the moment you decide that your dreams will no longer compete with your excuses. Let this be the moment you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than comfort, more than fear, more than hesitation. Because once you make that decision and back it up with action, something powerful happens. You stop hoping for change and you start creating it. You stop talking about goals and you start pursuing them. You stop explaining why you can't and you start showing why you can. And when that shift happens, there is no limit to how far you can go. Not because the road becomes easy, but because you become stronger. Not because obstacles disappear, but because you learn to move through them. Not because excuses vanish from the world, but because they vanish from your mind. And when excuses lose their place in your thinking, they lose their place in your life. So move forward from this moment with clarity, with hunger, with determination. Let your actions speak louder than your reasons. Let your discipline speak louder than your doubts. Let your consistency speak louder than your fear. And most of all, let your results speak louder than your excuse.